What's happening around the world and what's happening here at home? A very good evening to you and welcome to Primetime News. I'm Sandro Ferdinando, and joining me tonight with our sign language interpretation is Taraka Gabriel. Let's now take a look at your headlines for tonight.
Sri Lanka celebrates its 73rd Independence Day. The President, addressing the nation, says that he will remain true to the pledge to protect our nation's independence, unitary status, territorial integrity and sovereignty on behalf of our future generations. Tokyo says the decision on the East Container Terminal by Sri Lanka is unilateral and regrettable. Who wanted the Gazette issued by the Prime Minister lifting the import ban on tiles and sanitaryware to be cancelled after several hours of it being issued.
නිෂ්පාදකයන් දෙදෙනයි මේක ඉන්නේ. ඒ තුල ව්‍යාපාර ඒකාධිකාරියක් දැන් පවත්වාගෙන යන්නේ.
Date set for the election at Sri Lanka cricket.
Sri Lanka celebrated 73 years of independence today, with the celebrations taking place at the Independence Square in Colombo. Addressing the nation, President invited all citizens to build the future with a positive mindset.
This year's Independence Day celebrations were held under the theme A Brighter Tomorrow and a Prosperous Motherland. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, this year's Independence Day celebrations were held in accordance with health guidelines. The Inspector General of Police, commanders of the three armed forces and the Secretary of Defence were the first to arrive at the Independence Square. After the arrival of the leader of the opposition, Sajith Premadasa, and former President Maithripala Sirisena, the Speaker of Parliament and the Prime Minister arrived at the occasion.
අප්‍රතිහත ධෛර්යයේ අනවරත මෙහෙවරෙහි අනගිතම ප්‍රතිඵල ලබන්නෝ වත්මන් ශ්‍රී ලාංකේය දූ පුතුන්මය.
President Gotabaya Rajapaksa arrived at the Independence Square to commence the celebrations.
එදා මාතෘ භූමිය වෙනුවෙන් රණවිරුක ලෙස කටයුතු කරමින්
The national flag was hoisted and the national anthem was sung by school students. A 2-minute silence was observed in memory of the fallen war heroes. A guard of honor and a 21-gun salute was awarded to the President. The President then addressed the nation.
Sri Lanka Prajatantrawadi Rata.
Sri Lanka is a democratic nation. Every citizen who lives in the country has equal rights. We reject any efforts to divide our citizens based on ethnic or religious reasons. We always strive to protect the fundamental rights and human rights of all our citizens and always stand for the principle of one nation, one law. I have advised the Attorney General's Department to swiftly act upon matters that have caused great concern to the public, such as the April 21st attack and the central bank bond scam. I have now received the final report of the Presidential Commission appointed to inquire into the April 21st attack, simultaneously taking into account the recommendations of the previous Parliament's Sectoral Oversight Committee on National Security. Action will be taken against all parties involved in this tragedy. We will not allow those responsible for designing and enabling this tragedy to escape justice. We will never allow extremism to raise its head again in this country.
ඒ වගේම අන්තවාදයට නැවත මේ රට තුල හිස ඔසවන්නවටත් අපි ඉඩ දෙන්නේ නැහැ. රටේ ආර්ථික මරමස්ථාන විදේශිකයන්ට.
While our policy of not selling national economic hubs to foreigners remains unchanged, I trust that the public will critically assess the misinformation and misinterpretations being propagated by those with ulterior political motives to deter foreign investors from investing in Sri Lanka. However, I observe that weaknesses currently prevail in decision-making at every level. The legal reforms necessary to protect those in the public service who take correct decisions are currently being formulated. I therefore request all those in positions of authority to ease the limitations and practices that obstruct the general public through the state administration.
මහජනතාවට බාධාකාරී වන සීමාවන් සහ ක්‍රමවේදයන් ලිහිල් කරගනිමින් රාජ්‍ය යාන්ත්‍රණය ක්‍රියාත්මක කරන ලෙස වගකිය යුතු සියලු දෙනාගෙන් මම ඉල්ලා සිටිනවා. රාජ්‍ය පාලනය තුල
We are setting an example to eradicate corruption and waste in the public administration. We will not be lenient on anyone who is found guilty of corruption or waste. However, one of the difficulties we face in preventing corruption is the indirect support given willingly or unwillingly by the public to such activities. I request the general public not to encourage corruption either directly or indirectly.
සිටිනවා. දූෂණයට ඍජුව හෝ වක්‍රව සාය නොදක්වන ලෙස.
In his address to the nation, the president extended an open invitation to the public.
මා ජනාධිපති කරවීම සඳහා
Various parties claim that they work to ensure my election as president. That may be true. People from every section of the society gathered around me to support my campaign. I believe that the vast majority of these people did not search of personal benefits, but because they expected me to serve the nation diligently.
එසේ අවංක චේතනාවෙන් මට සහාය දුන් ජනතාවගේ
I am always prepared to fulfill the genuine expectations of the public that supported me with honest intent. However, I will never take decisions that will damage the country and to please those who seek gains for themselves personally or for their business. What we require today is the support of citizens with a positive vision, who love their country, who contribute to the society, and who do not make fair criticism but offers practical solutions to the issues we face. I therefore once again request all the citizens of this country to think positively and join with us to build the future for all our children. I am the leader that you searched for. I will discharge the responsibility you have entrusted to me with commitment and dedication.
ඔබ මට බාර දුන් වගකීම මම නොපිරිහෙලා ඉටු කරනවා.
The Independence Day parade commenced after the president's address. Officers of the Sri Lanka Army and other ranks took part in the parade.
ප්‍රයාන්විතය සඳහා සුවිශේෂී මෙහෙවරක් ඉටු කරන විරෝධාර රණවිරුවන් සිය අභිමානය 73 වන නිදහස් සමරු මුලලට එක් කරමින් සම්මාන පෙළපාලියේ ගමන් කිරීමට නියමිතයි.
අනෙකුත් රෙජිමේන්තුවලට වඩා වේගවත් බවකින් යුක්ත වෙනවා. සටනෙහි දියුණුව අවස්ථාවේ ගොඩින් දියන්හෝ ගෝනින් අනෙකුත් පොදු රාජකාරීන් සඳහා
The Sri Lanka Navy and the Sri Lanka Air Force then paraded to mark the 73rd Independence Day. The aircraft and helicopters of the Sri Lanka Air Force also flew in the sky above the Independence Square in Colombo to showcase the air might of the Sri Lanka Air Force.
ශ්‍රී ලංකා ගුවන් හමුදාව මෙම පෙළපාලියට තුන්වන ජාතික නිදර්ශන සමර පෙළපාලියට මෙසේ එක්වනවා.
This is how the police special task force and the civil defence force took part in the parade.
We now witness the Sri Lanka police.
සහකාර පොලිස් අධිකාරී කීර්ති විජේසිංහ විසින් ආරාධන පොලිස් විශේෂ කාර්ය බළකා බලයනිය සම්මාන පෙළපාලියට එක්වන අවස්ථාව. පොලිස් අශ්වාරෝහකයින් 73 වන නිදහස් දින සම්මාන පෙළපාලියට එක්වන අවස්ථාව.
වටිනාම අවධිය රට වෙනුවෙන් කැප කළ මිනිසුන් රැයක් දවාලක් නොමැතිව සිය දිවි දෙවැනි කොට රට රැකමට කැප වූ මිනිසුන්.
Weapons, artillery and other military equipment used by the security forces were displayed at the parade along with the personnel of special units of the military taking part in the parade.
Multi-barrel rocket launcher AVI. Then ඔබ ඉදිරියේ ධාවනය වන්නේ ප්‍රාණාපකරුවන් පුදවා ගැනීම සහ ප්‍රතිශස්ත කණ්ඩායම් ක්‍රියාන්විත සඳහා භාවිතා කරනු ලබන mobile adjustable RAM system ඉනතුරු විශේෂ බලකා සංග්‍රාමික කිමිදුම් බලකනේ සතු CRRC යාත්‍රාව ගමන් කරනවා.
15 surface-to-air missiles on display. It's a heat-seeking type missile specially built for the purpose of destroying.
The celebrations ended with several cultural events with the participation of around 340 dancers and musicians. In line with the 73rd Independence Day celebrations, the Sri Lanka Navy honoured the nation by according a 25-gun salute on board the Sri Lanka naval ship Samudra. This is the first time in 70 years that a Sri Lanka Navy ship has been awarded the gun salute on behalf of the nation. In 1950, the gun salute had been accorded on board HMS Vijaya, the Navy's first warship. Celebrations were held in Jaffna to mark the 73rd Independence Day. A parade commenced this morning at the Pannai Square in Jaffna and proceeded towards the Jaffna Fort and concluded near the Jaffna Library. The event that followed the parade saw the participation of the General Secretary of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party, State Minister Dayasiri Jayasekara. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Our correspondents noted that Independence Day celebrations were held at all district secretariats located in the north and eastern provinces.
We salute our nation and people on our Independence Day. Independence is not just a word, but a right. Unity shall be our strength, and united we will face all challenges. Our freedom is our right.
The United States, India and China have extended their wishes to the President and the Prime Minister on the 73rd Independence Day of Sri Lanka. The Chinese embassy in Colombo said in a tweet that Chinese President Xi Jinping had sent a congratulatory message to President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, wishing the people of Sri Lanka prosperity and happiness. Chinese Prime Minister Li Keqiang has sent a congratulatory message to Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa. Meanwhile, US Secretary of State Anthony J. Blinken said that the success of the democratic movement depends on the common principles of democracy, human rights, the rule of law and the protection and promotion of justice for all. He said in a statement, quote, "We look forward to working with Sri Lanka as a partner and friend in promoting security and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific region," unquote. Meanwhile, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi congratulated Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa and wished that the strong ties between the two countries would be further strengthened in the years to come. He further added that despite the challenges posed by the COVID-19 pandemic, relations between the two countries have been able to enhance development cooperation, trade, economic ties as well as people-to-people contacts. As China, India and the United States of America have extended their wishes for our Independence Day, Japan has informed Sri Lanka that the country's decision on the East Container Terminal is unilateral and regrettable. According to the Hindu website, Japanese ambassador to Sri Lanka Akira Sugiyama had expressed this when he met with the foreign minister yesterday. The Hindu says the ECT project was expected to showcase India-Japan cooperation in a part of South Asia where Chinese infrastructure projects have been prominent. The Hindu adds that Japan has given loans worth 1.1 trillion yen to Sri Lanka, along with technical assistance and grants amounting up to 300 billion yen. The report says nearly 70% of the transshipment business through ECT is linked to India. Quoting the former Sri Lankan High Commissioner to India, Austin Fernando, the Hindu website says that the West Container Terminal was initially offered to India in 2018, but India rejected the offer.
On the one hand, Indian influence is engulfing our country. On the other hand, Chinese influence is engulfing the country separately. We have come to a point where governments in our country are appointed by the influence of these nations. We are now speaking of the possible scenario where governments in our country are not appointed by the vote of the general public, but by the influence of the Indian High Commission. As the ruling faction comes into power, they start selling national assets. For example, the Palali housing project is not being done according to the specifications of the government of Sri Lanka. It is being done according to the specifications of the Indian government. The politicians in the estates are being controlled by India. The northern politicians are being controlled by the Indians. The Palali airport, the Kankasanture port, is just being held without any development being done on those strategic assets. The petroleum tanks have been taken over, and not even a single official of the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation is allowed to enter the premises. They have taken over this location to the extent where our police or the tri-forces are not even allowed to go into these places. India tried to push the government of Sri Lanka against the wall and take over the East Container Terminal. Now they have started the second phase, where they are trying to get ownership of about 80% of the West Terminal to eventually reach the East Container Terminal. If they give away the West Container Terminal, they will have to give away the East Container Terminal too. We have been brought down to the level where pieces of our country are being sold off to various nations and their flags are hoisted at these locations. We will only have true freedom if we can celebrate our independence at the port city, if we can celebrate our independence at the East Container Terminal, if we can celebrate our independence next to the oil tanks or the Hambantota port. On that day, we will have true independence. So we strongly condemn the sale of strategic locations and important economic national assets of the country to foreign nations.
දැන් කියනවා බටහිර දෙනවලු ඊළඟට ඒක වෙනුවට අනික දෙනවලු මුන්ට දැන් විකුණන්න නැතුව ඉන්න බෑ.
They are now handing over the West Container Terminal. We must appoint a commission to look into what the countries have given Sri Lanka. How many more state-owned assets do we have left? There is no point of handing over the port to Sri Lankans. We should hand it over to the multinational companies instead, but companies that could bring the dollars into our country. Back in the day, the Portuguese used guns to take over our port, but now they are using dollars to do the same thing. The dollar is equal to the weapons they used. The West Container Terminal will now be handled by India, Japan and Sri Lanka. They are using dollars for this invasion.
කොහටද ජපානයටයි අපි හවුල කරනවලු. රෙඩි. හවුල කරනවලු. අපි කියන්නේ ආක්‍රමණයක්. ඒකට පාවිච්චි කරන්න ඩොලර් එක.
An independent nation, free of foreign intervention.
Meanwhile, a decision has been reached to remove the ban on mining sand from the Kalu River. The decision was taken despite warnings from the Department of Irrigation that the water supply in the Kalutara district could be affected.
The Kethena Water Purification Centre supplies water to about 60,000 families living in the Kalutara district. During the dry season, the water here becomes unsuitable for consumption after it gets mixed with seawater. The deepening of the river due to sand mining resulting in the river bed falling below the sea level has been identified as the reason for seawater to mix with the water of the river. On the 31st of December last year, the mining of sand from this river was suspended. By that time, about 250 licenses for sand mining that in turn affected the supply of water at the purification plant had been issued. At a meeting attended by the Minister of Environment yesterday, Minister Rohitha Begunawardena said that the license to mine sand should be issued.
The Kalu River is at higher risk when compared with the rest of the rivers. Since the river bed is low, seawater comes into the river.
We distributed water among the people using bowsers. We also gave water to the people through the water purification plant. When we look at the issuing of licenses in the past, there has been a reduction and not an increase. Families are distancing themselves from this trade. We mine sand here according to the traditional method of diving to the river bed and mining sand from there. These innocent people make a living by unloading about 2 boats a day. We have pawned our sand mining permit and purchased motorbikes, a plot of land or a house. We pay for these using this permit.
අපි මාස 3කට මේ ලයිසන්ස් එක අපි දීර්ඝ කරලා දෙන්නම්. ඒ අන තත්ත්වය මොකද අපි ඊට පස්සේ නැවතත් අපි සර්වේ එකක් කරලා බලලා අවශ්‍යතාවයක් වුණොත් අපිට ඒක කටයුතු කරන්න සිද්ධ වෙනවා. මොකද ප්‍රායෝගික මට්ටමේ මේ අවුරුද්ද අපිට
We will have to practically continue like this. If there is anything dangerous found after this survey that you conduct, then we will have to agree to an alternative decision that you make.
අපි ඊට පස්සේ ඒකට විකල්පයකට අපි ගන්න තීන්දුවකට එකඟ වෙනවා.
However, at the end of the meeting, a decision was reached to issue permits to mine sand under the condition that the situation will be reviewed in 3 months. Meanwhile, a highly sensitive ecosystem in the Yala National Park buffer zone has come under threat due to illegal construction. An unauthorized construction has come up obstructing the animal path leading to the Gerimaspokuna waterhole located 12 kilometers away from the Palatupana gate of the Yala National Park. This waterhole is famous among parkgoers as a location most frequented by leopards and bears. The boards that have been set up at the location are evidence to that. This was the manner in which construction was commenced using heavy machinery at the entry point of the animal path leading to the Gerimas Pokuna. 2 construction workers had been present there as our correspondent reached the location as well. Backhoes being seen at the location also creates suspicion.
අපිට ඉතින් මේ වැඩ තියෙනවා කියලා තමයි ඉතින්. කවුද එක්කන් ආවේ? අපි ඉතින් කම්පැනි නේ. යාලේ කැලේ ඇතුළට කී දෙනෙක් එක්කන් ආවද? අපි 4 දෙනා යාලේ. 4 දෙනෙක්. JCB වලද? නෑ. JCB නේ.
Newsfirst's attempts to contact the Director General of Wildlife over the matter were proven futile in a number of occasions. However, the caretaker of the Yala National Park said the area in question does not come under the purview of the Yala National Park, but is owned by Sri Lanka Tourist Board. It is within this highly sensitive ecosystem that this construction is being carried out. What we say is to move this to a different location. This is deforestation. This is being done inside the electric fence within the Yala National Park buffer zone. We would like to ask as to who authorized this construction. According to our correspondent, the wildlife officials had taken steps to put an end to the unauthorized construction after Newsfirst was on location reporting the story. An independent nation free of environmental destruction.
We reported yesterday on how a gazette issued by the Prime Minister was annulled within a few hours and that the import restrictions on tiles and sanitary ware were reimposed. The Association of the Tiles and Sanitary Ware Importers Association said that this decision will result in a monopolization of the market in the country.
An extraordinary gazette was issued on the 10th of July last year banning the import of tiles and sanitary ware. Due to a drop in the availability of tiles and sanitary ware in the market, the price of these items skyrocketed.
කලින් චයිනා ටයිල් එක 450යි 500කට වගේ තිබුණේ. දැන් මේ ඔක්කොම 1200 1400ක් වෙනවා ටයිල් එක. 50යි 60යි 80යි එහෙම ගාන කියනකොට ඒ ගාන අපි අරන් විකවන්න බෑ.
Against a backdrop where the general public was deprived of the opportunity to purchase tiles and sanitary ware at a reasonable price, the Prime Minister lifted the ban on the import of these items through an extraordinary gazette. However, a few hours after the gazette was issued, the Controller General of Import and Export annulled the decision in the gazette through operating instructions communicated through a letter addressed to the Director General of Customs and CEOs of all commercial banks.
මේ ආර්ථිකයේ එන්ජින් එක කන්ස්ට්‍රක්ෂන් ඉන්ඩස්ට්‍රි එක එම් පිටින් යන හිටි.
The engine of our economy, the construction industry, has completely stalled. Certain sanitary ware that was sold at 16,000 rupees are now priced at 40,000 rupees. Customers are helpless as they cannot purchase these items at this price. Tiles that were sold at about 500 rupees are now sold at 950 rupees. Local producers have increased their profits from 100% to 200%. This is an industry that had an annual income of 24 billion rupees. The government received an income of 12 billion rupees in import taxes. All of this is lost now. There are no more sanitary ware available for purchase. They cannot produce this enough to meet the demand. The biggest issue here is that there are only 2 producers in the country. They have now monopolized the market.
ඒකාධිකාරියක් දැන් පවත්වාගෙන යන්නේ.
This is not the first instance where decisions were reversed to favor certain businessmen. A few months ago, the reduction in the import tax for sugar to favor a single businessman resulted in the government losing an income over 10 billion rupees. Details on a similar situation surrounding the import of tiles and sanitary ware have come to light. Against a backdrop, the losses suffered due to the reduction in taxes of sugar have not been investigated.
රුපියල් 50ක තිබිච්ච බද්ද 725ක් කරලා අඩු කරලා
The tax, which is 50 rupees on sugar imports, is reduced to 25 cents. They provided these concessions to their friend to bring down sugar. This is the friend who allowed them to have meetings at Shangri-La. This caused the loss of 10 billion rupees to the treasury. We have informed this to the president with proof. We showed him how the gazette was issued. We showed him how the gazette was renewed. We showed him where the sugar was. We have filed a case at the CID for causing losses to the country. I lodged the complaint myself. This is not only a problem concerning sugar. A ship carrying coconut oil was stopped near the country. A gazette was published here. The ship then came into the port in 12 hours after the gazette. When the next gazette was issued, the coconut oil had been cleared from the port. This caused the loss of 380 million rupees because the tax was lost. The palm oil scam is 6.8 billion. Shouldn't these people be punished? Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa, as the Finance Minister, issued a gazette saying that the import restriction on certain goods have been removed. A few hours after this, a letter is issued by the Import-Export Controller to all the state bank and commercial bank heads. What does this letter say? It says to refrain from acting according to the gazette. Isn't this a joke? The Import-Export Department falls under the Ministry of Finance. Are there two governments in this country at present? Is the President deciding and taking action, or is the Prime Minister doing this? Or is someone else taking these decisions? We do not have answers. How do we expect the businessmen to do business like this? The government is playing with gazettes.
උපදෙස් දෙනවා කියලා අපි දන්නේ නැහැ. ව්‍යාපාරවලට සම්බන්ධ මිනිස්සු කොහොමද මේ විශ්වාසය කරගෙන යන්නේ? දැන් ආණ්ඩු ගැසට් එක සෙල්ලම් කරනවා.
An independent nation free of corruption.
Meanwhile, in line with the 73rd Independence Day celebrations, several programs were held commemorating the late D.S. Senanayake today as well.
A religious program was held at the Polwatta Sri Dharmakirti Aramaya in Kolpiti today, commemorating the late D.S. Senanayake. A group including the leader of the opposition, Sajith Premadasa, attended the event. Today the people have lost their economic freedom. They have lost their social freedom. The people have lost their inner political freedom as well. We have to continue the national effort pioneered by the late D.S. Senanayake in this modern day and age. Meanwhile, floral tributes were paid for the D.S. Senanayake Memorial statue located at the Independence Square in Colombo. The occasion was graced by Mayoress of Colombo, Rosie Senanayake, and the event was attended by former Speaker Karu Jayasuriya, Deputy Leader of the United National Party Ruwan Wijewardena, and several others. Meanwhile, Leader of the United National Party Ranil Wickremesinghe paid his floral tributes to the late D.S. Senanayake at the party headquarters. A group of people, including the senior leaders of the United National Party, participated in the event.
In some tragic news, Dr. Neville Fernando, who was receiving treatment for coronavirus infection, has passed away this evening. Dr. Fernando had been receiving treatment at the intensive care unit at the Infectious Diseases Hospital in Angoda.
Upon testing positive for the COVID-19 virus, he had been under medical care at the intensive care unit of the Neville Fernando Teaching Hospital. Dr. Fernando was then transferred to the IDH. Dr. Neville Fernando, the founder of Neville Fernando Teaching Hospital and the South Asian Institute of Technology and Medicine, or SITEM, had been 89 years old at the time of passing.
A decision has been reached to hold the Sri Lanka cricket election on the 20th of May.
The SLC election is held biannually to appoint office bearers to the cricket governing body in Sri Lanka. The election will be held on the 20th of May at 10:30 am at the auditorium of the Sports Ministry. The election will decide who will lead Sri Lanka cricket along with two vice presidents, a secretary, a deputy secretary, a treasurer and a deputy treasurer. The nominations of the election will be open on the 24th of this month. There are 144 legal votes at the election this time around. The candidates will be announced on the 20th of April after objections are taken into consideration.
An independent nation with a corruption-free cricket administration.
The centenary movement of Sri Lanka was launched today. The event was held under the theme, A Generation of Leaders with Charity, Compassion, Competence and Character.
The movement in a press release said that the Centenary Academy is a diverse, results-driven political movement with a vision for year 2048 to create a progressive, well-trained, competent generation of political leaders for Sri Lanka who will transform the political, economic and social landscape of the country. The launch today was held virtually.
On the day we celebrate the 73rd Independence Day of our motherland, we envision a great nation that would be an example to the entire world. We should not be a state where we have to borrow from other nations. We should be able to support other countries. We should be able to extend our helping hand towards countries that are of a worse fate than us. We should stand before the entire world as a nation that is generous. This is our dream. Some may say this will be limited to a dream, but we have 27 years. We should not delay our journey. Wherever you are, if your heart is pure, if you want to work for your country, if you wish to live a selfless life, let's form an alliance As Sri Lankans, we are born in a nation that is destined for greatness. Some others might say it is all right to not yield results. Let's go with the flow. We cannot be complacent after being born in a country like this. We cannot accept defeat. We have to be a blessing and an example to the entire world. This invitation is for you. Come and join us to ensure prosperity to our country during the next 27 years as we reach the centenary celebrations.
සෞභාග්‍යමත් වසර 27ක් සහ අපිට අති විශිෂ්ට යලිමා ප්‍රකාශ කරන අග්‍රගණ්‍ය සියවසක් සඳහා අපි පෙළගැසෙමු.
And with that, wrap up news for tonight. Thank you very much for joining us. Do take care and good night.
Our world is not divided by race, color, gender or religion. Our world is divided into wise people and fools. And fools divide themselves by race, color, gender or religion. Nobel Peace Prize laureate Nelson Mandela.